Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Leading in a Crisis podcast. On this podcast, we talk all things crisis management with an emphasis on storytelling from experienced crisis leaders. I'm Tom Mueller. Thanks again for joining us. Hey, if you want to drop me a line, you can email the show at tom@leadinginacrisis.com. On today's episode, we're continuing our conversation with Greg Barta, who's Public Information Officer for Orange County Fire Authority out in Orange County, California. As you might recall, Orange County dealt with a huge chemical incident with a runaway thermal reaction at a chemical facility there and required the evacuation of between 40 and 50,000 local residents over the Memorial Day weekend. So Greg has lots of interesting stories to share about his team's experience managing communications for that incident. Let's rejoin that conversation now. Yeah, let me just talk social media with you for a little bit here, because I was just really impressed with the way that your team really pushed information out on X. And that, to me, seemed to be the primary vehicle for communicating along with the video messages, right? And then, sending out those video messages that the incident commanders were doing. But was that really the primary channel you were using then to reach the community?
Yeah, and that kind of always is. That's kind of part of our game plan here, if you will. So whenever there's a major incident in our jurisdiction, it's X is going to be the primary focus for us for putting information out. And one of the biggest reasons for that is that's how the media picks up basically incidents that are happening. So for us, it's a two-pronged approach. We are able to obviously disseminate information directly to the community. And then secondarily, and equally just as important, is the media is able to pick it up so then they can generate their own news segments based on it. So if we post a video of Chief Covey like we were doing on there, I don't want to say they don't need to talk to us, but they kind of don't need to talk to us because they've got the video right there. They can go ahead and post it and they can come up with their own talking points based on what he himself as the incident commander is saying. So
Right.
I don't want to say it reduced the amount of media calls we got or requests for interviews because we obviously got a lot, but sometimes, obviously they want stuff nonstop. And it's kind of a way for us to provide them, a little something if we're not able to get out there to them right that second. Or, everybody wanted to interview Chief McGovern, Chief Covey, understandably so, but they were pretty busy at times too. So when we couldn't get them out there, at least having the video for them to be able to run with and play across, their various broadcast networks was a good
Yeah.
option.
Yeah, definitely a best practice the way you've implemented that. I mean, you feed the media machine with the videos from the experts who are leading the response. If I'm a reporter, it just doesn't get any better than that unless I can stick a microphone in his face and get a personal interview. But in situations like this, that's not going to happen, at least not very often. Um, did you take time to do any sort of one-offs with local TV stations, or did you really just rely on the videos to get the B-roll and the messaging out?
We did. I wish I would have kept a tally, or we would have kept a tally of how many interviews were done. We did a ton of one-off. I mean, a ton of one-off interviews. So, we kind of in the morning, I got with Chief Covey, and we would kind of get what the layout of the day looked like. I mean, again, everything's so dynamic that it could change at a moment's notice. But um, fitting in when he could do some interviews and Chief McGovern when he could do some interviews so that we kind of knew like, okay, I got a little window from 11 o'clock until noon. After the cooperator meeting, I got Chief Covey. I can get some interviews in for him. I got Chief McGovern at this time, so we could really focus on getting the media what they want, and they do need it, um, while not taking away from their jobs, running the incident. So in their absence, we utilized our PIOs to do those interviews, but we made it a pretty big priority to, especially like the national news, ABC World News Tonight, NBC News, those national ones. We got Chief McGovern. He was on that pretty much nonstop, as was Chief Covey, and we were able to really, pry them away and give everybody what they wanted at least once a day. I mean,
Right.
the media wants it 5 times a day. They wanted a one-on-one interview with them, and that, couldn't happen. But we pretty much fed the beast and were able to give them, what I thought was a more than adequate, ability to talk to the two chiefs.
Yeah, and Greg, the local affiliates weren't a little put off by the fact you were giving the networks the attention there?
Oh no, our locals got just as much as they probably got even more than the national. So one great thing we have, I mean, I would borderline call a lot of the media that we deal with on a regular basis. Like, I don't know if I'd go as far as calling them friends, but man, they're almost my friends, and I'd say that for our whole staff. So Chief McGovern, he knows them on a first name basis. I don't want to say deals with them, but interacts with them, fairly regularly. So we didn't just prioritize the national, we prioritized the local as well. So, I mean, everybody got treated, fairly evenly. Obviously the national kind of, they pretty much had like one request a day, and they want to get it out before the East Coast, news feeds hit, where the locals, they wanted multiple hits a day. So, obviously coordinating, if you had three or four requests from one local agency throughout the day, very tough to have the fire chief available for four requests a day. That's where we used our PIOs to fill in those gaps.
Mhm.
But we did make it a priority to give them the same treatment that the national news got as well.
And Greg, I did notice the fact that you had brand new PIO staff out there sort of answers the question, but I did see one interview where the PIO was giving out incorrect information. And that probably explains it to me now if you got some brand new people there. But, any PIOs who've worked, a number of incidents are going to always have those little quotes I'd like to have back. That little miscommunication that I said that was wrong, even though I thought it was right at the time. So I know you had a little bit of that to deal with, but overall, it seemed like messaging was spot on throughout.
Yeah, I mean, every incident's got a little challenge, and this being such a unique one. And yeah, that was just and at first I didn't know where that crack versus cracks was coming from. We're like, wait, cracks? We didn't know it's a crack. So we put out a message, and then we have a media monitoring company too. So I quickly went on and was able to pull, I got the interview, and I'm like, okay. And that individual, he's phenomenal. It was, I mean, legitimately, we're talking just finished his training and thrown into the deep end.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in that exact interview, he says crack and cracks. So it's not like, it's one letter, a little misspeak, but obviously, makes a difference. So caused a couple hours of extra work that night for Chief Covey and I, a couple extra phone calls. And that individual we talked about the next day, like nobody was mad. We've all made those mistakes. Like, and it wasn't even a mistake. It was just a quick little, slip of the tongue with an extra letter. And I think honestly, like I put myself in his shoes. I mean, I'd be pretty nervous. It's like the biggest incident in the entire country going on, and you're having to talk and to media, and you've never really done that. So we talked about it the next day. You know, gave him a break from the TV for a little bit. Like, okay, hey, let's not. It's okay. Like, not a big deal. Take a breather. We got him back in front of the camera. He did great. So, and I'm
Good.
sure I learn more from little mistakes I make than when everything goes perfectly. So I'm sure he'll, hammer that home
Yeah.
for him and for all of us. We use it as a good point for the whole PIO shop. Just, hey, everybody, let's just make sure, and if you're unsure of something, it's okay to say that
Right.
and get the correct information.
And again, as you've said, it was a very dynamic situation. Boy, there's teams going in to inspect it and it's changing rapidly. So, but it sounds like you guys were able to manage through that well and no problems. Again, a little tiny blip on this as you've gone through it. Um, hey, I want to talk to you about crisis websites for just a minute, if we can. I
Yeah.
come from, from the corporate background, worked in oil and gas industry my entire career, and in fact managed a network of dark crisis websites for the company globally, right? So if we had an incident somewhere in the world, we could stand up a crisis website very quickly. Um, but now OCFA, you guys generally don't do crisis websites for your responses. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So
Okay.
we rely pretty much on social media for the day-to-day operations of getting the messaging out, which is it's pretty effective. Obviously, websites are great. The hard part is like managing that, obviously, and who's going to be inputting stuff in live time. That's why, so the Emergency Operations Center, in conjunction with Orange County Sheriffs, so we actually did have a website up for this incident. Um, and so we were announcing that as well, like at the press conferences. And if people were calling the call center, they were certainly directed to the website. And that did provide, like, it has the updated, evacuation zones, the shelters, maps on there, and whatnot. But we don't have one. We obviously have our website that we use as an agency for our day to day. Anybody can go on, but we don't have a specific incident web page that we manage in live time.
Did you happen to see that private citizen website that was put up, ggspill.com?
I didn't. Was it good? Was it accurate?
It was fantastic actually. And I'll chew on GKN a little bit, the company that was involved and had this tank incident, for as far as I could tell, not really being prepared to manage and communicate around a major incident. But you need to be able to set up websites so that you're providing, credible information to people. Because if you leave a vacuum, somebody else is going to fill it, right? You had just a local 27-year-old guy who's a software engineer and web designer, and he just saw a need. So he started pulling together all these different feeds. He had an RSS feed coming from OCFA, so all the latest tweets were there on the top of the site. He found out who was, offering free food to evacuees, and he was posting up links to the restaurants that were offering food. The evacuation maps, the videos that you were producing over there in the Unified Command. He had those on the site. So he just really did a terrific job. And again, I don't have statistics for how many, what kind of traffic he got there, but he did a nice job. And I just became aware of it because he was commenting after critical OCFA tweets out there. Like, you guys have posted a video, he'd post a comment under it saying, hey, this is a website where there's available information as well. So, he was one of the good guys.
Yeah.
But boy, you don't have to go very far to find somebody with, malintent to try and throw monkey wrenches into something like this, right? And
Yeah.
so, anyway, is from your PIO perspective in the Orange County Fire Authority, uh, doesn't sound like websites and that was much of a focus for you for this incident.
No, and it generally it hasn't been past practice for us for I
Okay.
mean the major brush fires are obviously the ones that we deal with. We had that those Tustin hangers, the big blimp hangars. Um, so we had one of those burned down a few years ago. That was a pretty big incident, and it drug on for weeks just based on the smoke and the like potential environmental impacts. So um, web page was made for that, but that again was kind of done through the county emergency operations center, and obviously they
Mhm.
get some information from us, from the sheriffs, from the police departments, impacted, and everybody. But yeah, it's not something that we here at OCFA or our incident management team, we're not really doing that in live time ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to just shift gears quickly and ask you about GKN, the company that was involved, whose facility had this runaway thermal reaction going on in their storage tank. And we didn't see them in this response until day 5, essentially, when we saw a statement, press release that was issued from, I believe, from the UK. And how about in the unified command and the incident management team? Was the company, visible, active in this since this was their facility?
Yeah, great question. So my knowledge is somewhat limited on their involvement. Like I personally myself did not have any interaction with them until kind of after the incident had after we had basically turned the incident back over to them, Orange County Health and AQMD for the cleanup component of this. I do know that they were in communication with our team. So, the IC liaison officer, there were communications and stuff with them. But as far as the PIO shop, us and them, we didn't have any communication with them like during the actual incident.
Okay. And that probably would have helped out in doing the inquiry management kind of things if you had, a GCAN person in the JIC who could provide some level of expertise to help answer some questions, which when you're dealing with, like major oil spills or other chemical incidents like I have in my career, you kind of expect that, right? You've got company people staffing in a JIC alongside agency staff and, kind of unified command doing its thing. But we
Yeah, I mean,
didn't.
and I don't know their organizational structure or if they have spokespeople that are local or um so I do know that they were involved with our team, but not necessarily like they weren't involved with us as a PIO section.
Okay. Yeah. And that was my impression watching this, right? They just were a non-entity in the whole communications thing. And, from a best practices perspective, as a company with hazardous operations, it doesn't reflect well on them. And I look at that and I think, well, they didn't have a plan to deal with a major incident at this facility, certainly not a crisis communications plan. But that's a lesson learned for all of us, for other companies out there who are watching and thinking, wow, could that happen to our company? And hopefully spurs them to spend a little time developing their own crisis communications plans and strategies. So good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
I do know they went to a city council meeting in Garden Grove, and a spokesperson for them did deliver basically a statement,
mhm.
kind of after the fact. But
I
yeah,
saw that. I'm working on another podcast episode that deals with the town hall meetings, um, because we have a lot of experience in that in the oil and gas industry when you have incidents that affect communities. And yeah, I was very happy to see them show up for that meeting. They missed a couple of earlier opportunities to engage with the community at other meetings. So it was great for them to be there. Um, and I'll talk more about that. So kudos to GKN for turning up and addressing some of the citizen concerns. Um, that empathy thing, they got to work on that a little bit. Should talk to Chief Covey
Chief
or
Covey, yeah,
McGovern and work some of that empathy into your doing because they had a very angry community, a scared community, and you didn't get a sense, that they just cared that much. And so
yeah.
I thought they could have done that piece better, but tune in to the next podcast and
There
we'll shed some light on that.
you go.
Okay. Um, so Greg, any other issues any stories you can share from behind the scenes there, for people who might find themselves working a big scale up incident? The evacuations was a unique piece for this. Did you, gosh, I don't know how quite to phrase this because that was such a huge part of this, but it's mostly, you know, it's not very visible for most people who are watching, right? Um, Unless you're watching the local news and they're talking to people. How big an issue was the evacuation centers and all of that from your perspective, or was that really for others to deal with?
To be honest, really for others to deal with. And that's like for our incident management team, it wasn't, that was pretty much the cities, the Red Cross. They were the ones, implementing those evacuation centers and giving us that information, but not a huge impact on like what we were having to deal with as a communication shop on, the incident management team. But there definitely were unique challenges. I mean, if that was kind of one of the questions you had, so two that come to mind, one I already touched on, but one of the biggest ones is I had a conversation with one of our assistant chiefs about the frequency at which we provided information. There's that fine line of giving too many updates, but where you're not really providing an update, you're just kind of talking to talk versus not providing enough. So we were trying to float that fine line of, in my head, I kind of had, I want three a day, a morning, like a briefing, a midday, and a nighttime, like almost like a sign off for the night, kind of.
Mhm.
It's just a rough draft of what we wanted to accomplish. But what was unique about this is, when we have a brush fire, something is always changing and rapidly. It's getting bigger, the containment numbers are getting bigger, we have more people operating on the fire. This residential area is under evacuation orders. Okay, now they're lifted, but now this one is. There's so much new stuff to put out there that you kind of almost can't keep up that way. Where this incident, I don't want to say that nothing was occurring, but we weren't able to give those like updates of the new information that was like drastically new, where we do on a brush fire. So it's kind of that fine line of like,
Mhm.
I wish I had more to give you every 5 minutes, but I don't. So that was kind of a challenge. It was a dynamic incident, but not nearly as dynamic as most of the fires we go on, or kind of those more all hazard incidents, in a different nature. So that was a challenge and something we were in live time, kind of, dealing with providing information, but having it not occur as rapidly as we're used to. And then the other big challenge, I already touched on it, was having three brand new members. So when we got them down there, in the afternoon on that Friday, there was at one point I basically I had to tell a couple of them, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you guys right now. I'm gonna need like 30 minutes and then I'll help you. You're not, it's all good. Just you can stand here and watch me. But like it was to that point where I didn't have 30 seconds to explain anything. Like I had to move, move, move. Um, and so it's like you had help there, but you couldn't really use the help. And then
Yeah.
myself and Sean, we were both talked like, oh man, like some of these it's just easier for us to do it than like delegate it. Where if I delegate it though, I'm gonna have a lot of questions. So
Yeah.
it's gonna just take more time. And then the other challenge, we kind of already touched on it, with the new people and sometimes there's mistakes. The other thing I wrestled with was I know the three individuals very well. They're all amazing fire captains, and everybody has certain strengths and weaknesses. And it was one of them is just a phenomenal person in front of the camera. He's just got that God-given natural ability. Like, I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
But do I just put him in front of the camera every time and not give the others a rep? But then they're not going to get better. And then also he's not going to get better at those other avenues that, maybe some other people are better at. So it was kind of like that fine line of, who do we send where? And and what's funny is the best example I have of that, the funny story from it is when we first sent somebody to evacuation center, I thought it might be pretty rough. I thought it might be one of those where the community is upset. They want to be back in their homes, rightfully so. I get that. And it might be a contentious environment. So that one I picked the person who I thought was the best adept at like kind of playing hot seat and dodging and weaving as those punches come in. And the best part of that was he called me and thanked me for sending him there because everybody was giving him standing applauses and shaking his hand and saying thank you. So it kind of turned out to be, I sent the guy that I thought could do the best at dealing with a rowdy crowd that maybe wasn't too happy, and he ended up getting the crowd that loved him. So um, just a unique one, and we talked about it afterwards. Like,
Yeah.
potentially in the future, and some of those guys, they all have different strengths. Like, do we lean into the strengths or do we keep working on everybody getting well-rounded? And I think it's incident dependent. I think if I had to do it all over again, I might have on this one just because it was such a one-off and so unique. In hindsight, I might have leaned in a little bit more to just putting people in their areas of strengths and leaning into those a little bit more, especially because they were so new that, you know what? Okay, the guy who's great on camera, let's just lean into it and put him in front of the camera. There's one person who's really good at kind of the administrative stuff. Could have used him maybe more full time on the computer doing some of that stuff. Just on this one because it was such a unique incident.
Yeah. Well, the challenge of the PIO and the onboarding process. I've, watched a number of oil spill incidents where, they kind of start escalating as oil starts moving around on the tides. And the Coast Guard station here who's working it is looking for additional resources to come and help them manage the response. But people show up and they don't have time to onboard them, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much happening. So I see that a lot here. But you know what? Hey, give a lot of credit to your training program in preparing your PIOs to at least, step into a leadership position here and help deliver some of those key messages. So, where would they be without the training that you provided to them?
I think the funniest thing is, so part of the class that we put on, I have a slide on there and it's called like worst case scenario. And it's incidents that we've had, line of duty deaths. We had a buggy with a bunch of our wildland firefighters roll over and severely injure a bunch of them a few years back. So just kind of like, hey, you're in these PIO classes and you never think that incident's going to happen to you. And so it was all realistic incidents we've been on. And I explained to them how it's insane how the phone never stops ringing. Like you are just doing your best to tread water, and it can be very stressful. And doing these press conferences with limited amount of time to prep for them, it's a whole different animal. And then they said, like the first press conference, I think we did at 2 o'clock on that Friday. They were like, "Holy crud! I didn't even realize it was as bad as like it's gnarly. Like what you're saying is totally right. I cannot believe like how quick this all comes together and what you guys have to do in such a short period of time." So it was kind of funny that they literally had the slide the day before of worst case scenario, and then they were thrust right into the worst case scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, that goes back to planning and preparation, right? And showing that leadership and getting your people onboarded. And of course, to management for seeing the value and need of having those PIO staff there and providing, the funding for all of that. So kudos all around. Greg, I'll just say, congratulations to you and to OCFA organization and to everybody, who was involved with the communications of this. It really was a fantastic job. And I've looked at a lot of scenarios and incidents over time. I was very, very impressed with you guys. So congratulations for that. And let's hope you don't have to do it again soon.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, honestly, I think the credit really goes to our executive management staff here. So, from our fire chief, Chief McGovern, on down to our deputy chief, assistant chiefs, every one of them places an emphasis and a value on communication and providing that timely, accurate information, not just on these major incidents, but day in and day out. So we know we have their support, and that's huge. So I don't know that many agencies have the kind of support, for corporate communications, for the public information office that we do from our fire chief on down. So it's great, and we all feel fortunate. I love my job in large part because of the support that we have from them. So it is great. So kudos to them for setting us up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Greg, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. Great stories, great experiences there. And I hope, if you don't mind, I may invite you back at some point in the future, maybe talk about another issue.
I'd love to. You name one that you want it to be, and we'll make sure it happens.
All right, Greg, thank you. That's going to do it for this episode of the Leading in a Crisis podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, reminder, if you'd like to drop me an email, you can hit me at tom@leadinginacrisis.com. Thanks for being here. We'll see you again on another episode soon. Take care.